I read a book called Coach Wood and Pyramids of Success a while back. And one of the first chapters talked about a concept that he created basically. And that concept was industriousness. He described industriousness as a mix and balance of planning and hard work. Now that made me realize something. A lot of people focus too much on the hard work aspect, focused on how much hours they worked. I worked 12 hours, I worked 10 hours, this and that, right? They're all about the numbers, how much they worked. But did you actually do something in those 12 hours? Or were you just lollygagging on a random task? Or were you just daydreaming every 3 seconds, not really focused on the task in front of you? Or did you have something planned out and you focused on those things for every single hour of that 12? See, a lot of people, they don't focus on the planning part as much as they do the hard work or the volume. But being able to plan effectively, I argue, is more important than the hard work itself. Because if you planned, that means you know what to do, meaning you're able to work harder on that thing instead of just going with the flow, not really knowing what you need to do or want to do in the first place. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to plan properly. And without being said, let's get into it. Section 1. What is a plan and its purpose? Okay, I know this is going to sound weird, but what is planning? Like, when you have a plan, what does that plan mean to you? I say a lot of people will say that a plan is something that they stick to no matter what happens. Like, if your plan was to go to your friend's birthday party, you will stick to that plan. No matter if the trains are delayed, no matter if you get lost, you're going to stick to the plan and go to your friend's party. That's exactly what a plan is supposed to mean. Something that you stick to no matter what. So why do people, despite knowing what a plan is, despite knowing the definition of a plan, do the opposite? There's a lot of people, and maybe you've done this, I definitely have done this, that they plan something, and when something goes wrong or isn't perfect, the plan just falls apart, and they kind of give up on the plan. And they're like, fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore. If you want to know how to effectively plan, you must respect the plan and truly understand what you're vowing when you create a plan. A plan is a detailed vow. It's something that's laid out for you and isn't up for discussion. If you're on a meal plan, you don't eat anything else but those meals. By making that meal plan, you're making a vow to only eat those foods. If you have a plan to work on the website of your business or run 5 miles tomorrow, you're making a vow that no matter what happens tomorrow, you're going to work on the business. You're making a vow that no matter what happens tomorrow, you're going to run those 5 miles. From now on, think of a plan as a detailed vow. Now, why should we have a detailed vow of everything we're going to do tomorrow? What's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of a plan? Well, it's because plans get rid of decisions. By them getting rid of those decisions, it allows you to be the most optimal you can be. Think about it like this. A plan makes the decisions for you. Let's go back to the working on the business example. Let's take a version of you that planned out what they're going to work on in the business. Maybe they're going to work on the website or talk to clients, whatever it is. But you basically planned out what you're going to do in the business. And another version of you didn't plan out. Which version of you will be more productive and make more progress? The version of you that planned, right? Maybe you know why, maybe you don't. But the main reason why is because you didn't have to waste time and energy making a decision on what to do. Whether we are conscious about it or not, we're making thousands of decisions a day on the smallest and most minute things, like what socks to wear, if I should eat at this time or not, what I want to eat, what color shirt I want to wear. Every day we're making decisions, and these decisions, no matter how big or small, sap some of our energy and time away. The bigger the decision, the more energy you're wasting. So the version of you that didn't plan what they were going to do tomorrow essentially has to spend valuable time and energy to not only decide what to do, but contemplate if they should do that thing or this, if they should hop on sales calls or work on the website or, I don't know, like record a video, right? So not only are they making decisions, the contemplation of those decisions are sapping some of their energy and time away, right? So by the time they do decide, okay, I'm going to work on the website of the business, they already sapped away 10% of their energy just off decisions alone, making them by default 10% less productive than the person that planned and didn't spend time and energy on deciding what to do because it's already set out, it's already decided for them. So essentially, if you're able to plan properly, you're able to mitigate the amount of time and energy you spend on decisions and put that time and energy on the things that are going to move you closer to achieving your goals, the important things. Section 2, plan like a war general. A plan is much more than just telling you what to do. It involves strategy. You shouldn't just mindlessly plan to do a certain thing just because it's a routine to do it. You should plan strategically like a war general. If you don't know how a war general plans attacks, they really examine and take into account the strengths and weaknesses of the enemy. They define objectives, they develop a detailed plan, and consider other factors such as landscape and weather, and they also focus on allocating proper resources and many more, right? A lot of things they take into account, because when you're planning, don't just do it like just because. This has to be like a strategy. It's a strategy, and I'm going to show you why it's strategic, and I'm going to show you why you should put a lot of time and effort into your planning. Out of the many things war generals do to effectively plan, there's 3 that stand out and can help us plan properly. Those 3 are taking into account the strengths and weaknesses of the enemy, defining objectives, and developing a detailed plan. These are the main 3 that are going to allow us to plan properly. Let's start with considering the strengths and weaknesses of the enemy. Now, this doesn't really make sense in the context of self-improvement, like who's the enemy, right? So let's switch the enemy to your goal. I'm not talking about the goal itself. I'm not talking about the strengths and weaknesses of the aesthetic body or the strengths and weaknesses of the 10K a month. I'm talking about the strengths and weaknesses of the highest leverage task. We know what a highest leverage task is by now, but if you don't, a highest leverage task is the most important thing you can do in order to achieve a specific goal. And every goal has at least 2 to 3 highest leverage tasks that you can do. For example, for an aesthetic body, the highest leverage tasks are working out, being in a caloric deficit. I know like surplus works as well, but I used to be a fat ass, so I'm gonna say caloric deficit, right? So working out, being in a caloric deficit, and recovery. For 10K a month, the highest leverage tasks are create a product, get customers, and sell to customers. In order to plan properly, we need to have an understanding on which of these highest leverage tasks of these goals are we weak in, and which of these highest leverage tasks of these goals are we stronger in. And the way you have to identify these weaknesses and strengths are by asking yourself, if then you put your highest leverage task here, is weak, how would that look like? For example, let's take the aesthetic body, right? We know the highest leverage tasks for getting an aesthetic body are working out, being in a caloric deficit or surplus, but again, I used to be a fat ass, so I'm gonna say caloric deficit, and recovery. And if you want to see if you're weak in any of these highest leverage tasks, ask yourself, for each highest leverage task that you identified for this goal, if you were weak in that highest leverage task, what would that look like? And also, I'm sorry for using like aesthetic body and 10K a month all the time, but these are just like benchmark. They're like placeholders. They're easy to say, they're easy to identify, so I just keep on using them for an example. But if it gets annoying, just let me know, and I'll use different examples. But if it's not annoying you, then I'm gonna keep on using them. Let's go down the line. If you were weak in working out, what would that look like? Maybe you're not getting sore, you're not seeing muscle growth, you're not filling out your frame, you're not really trying in the gym. If you're experiencing any of those, chances are your working out is the weak link. Now, let's do this again, but for caloric deficit. Let's ask, if you were weak in a caloric deficit, what would that look like? Well, it would look like you're not really losing weight, you're not getting leaner, you're not seeing more definition on your body. Maybe you're going on binges with junk food and you're consistently going over your caloric goals. If you see any of those signs, chances are you're most likely weak in the caloric deficit department. And the same process again for recovery. And I want to add that this just doesn't work for just aesthetic body. I'm just using aesthetic body a lot because it's easy to explain again. But again, let me know if this is getting annoying with the aesthetic body and stuff, because I'll switch it up happily. The second thing you need to do to plan effectively is to define objectives. What is the goal for today? What do you want to achieve today? This and developing a detailed plan go hand in hand. When you're planning, don't just say work on selling. Get detailed. Ask, what is the goal that I want to achieve with selling today? Ask that, and then whatever the answer is, write that down, and that would be your goal. That would be the objective, the reason why you're doing selling today. It will kind of give you a benchmark to see like if this day was successful or not. It can either be skill or outcome based, where either the objective is to try and learn and get better at selling, which is a skill based path because you're defining the objective as getting better at the skill of sales, or it can even be like to close for sales, which is an outcome based path where you're defining it off an outcome, which is closing the 4 sales. When you're planning, identify what is the goal you want to achieve when doing this thing. And this finally goes into my next point, which is to make the plan detailed. Every single thing that you're planning to do should be on there. What time you work, what time you finish, when you eat, when you take a break, when you work out, everything should be there. Don't make it vague. Don't just say work. Say working on developing my counters to customers' objections, or run 5 miles in 45 minutes, whatever it is. Make sure you're being detailed with it and not vague. Because when you're detailed with it, it gives you more direction, meaning you can be more focused and work harder on it. If you just said run 5 miles, you would be less focused and wouldn't work as hard than if you said run 5 miles in 45 minutes, because now there's a constraint of time, right? And the same thing with working on counters to customers. If you didn't kind of make it detailed in that way, you wouldn't be as focused in that sales session when you're trying to develop your skills. You wouldn't be as focused and have that thing in the back of your mind that you're working on objections, and you would just kind of be lollygagging, right, with no direction. So essentially, the first step to plan properly is to identify your goal. The second step I want you to do is find your highest leverage task. Chances are you know what your highest leverage tasks are, but if you don't, simply ask yourself this one question. What are the 2 to 3 things that I need, N-E-E-D, need to do, and if I don't, I can't achieve my goal? For example, if you want a business, you need to have a product. You need to have a way to get customers. You need to know how to sell to these customers. And without those, you can't have a business. And at the night before, which is when you're supposed to plan the night before, the first question you ask yourself is, what highest leverage task for the goal am I weak in? If you don't know which one's your weak in, you can isolate each task and ask, if I'm weak in this task, what would that look like? If you match with a lot of the answers that come from that question, chances are that's your weak link, right? And you should focus on that thing, because why would you focus on anything else but the thing you're weak at? Let's say you're an MMA fighter and you have A tier striking and D tier grappling. It makes no sense to focus on striking. It makes more sense to focus on the thing you're weak in, which is grappling. Same thing applies. Your plan should be made around this weakness, because if you fix the weakness, you'll make progress, because that task that is weak is the constraint, the reason why you're not seeing as much progress as you could. After you identify the task you're weak in, ask yourself, what is the objective that I want to achieve with this task for today? This can be either skill or outcome based. Skill based means you're focused more on developing the skills that would get you better at that thing, such as getting better at sprawling and double legs with the MMA example. But it can also be outcome based, where you're focused on an outcome, a goal of some sorts, like getting 15 successful double leg takedowns in one session, right? So whatever it is, it can either be skill or outcome based. Just identify what you want to do in this session. What is the reason? Is it to get better at the skills, or is it for a certain outcome? And finally, make this plan detailed, because the more detailed the plan is, the less decisions you have to make. And the less decisions you have to make, the more time and energy and focus you can spend on the thing that really matters with this goal, the tasks that really matter and really push you towards this goal. Section 3, how to view this plan. View this plan as if it's the holy book, the Bible, that no matter what impulses you get, distractions like friends calling you to game or come outside, and your own thoughts and ego telling you that you can, go and do something else, right? You've done enough, right? You will never stray away from this plan. No matter what minor hiccups happen throughout the day, you're going to always do what you set out to do. It's a vow that you took with the universe, and that if you deviate from this plan out of your own accord, that the universe has every right not to give you what you want. Of course, if there's something urgent, yes, deviate from your plan, right? But if it's truly not urgent and important, and you pick that thing like your friends or a certain vice, then you deserve to not get what you want. I know it sounds harsh, but this is how you're supposed to view this plan. This plan is your life, the holy grail. Your plan, sometimes your plan changes, right? But overall, the plan is consistent in what it expects of you. Now, that was a lot, but that's all I have for today. And without being said, I wish you luck on your journey. And peace.